Hi, I'm Caroline. Thank you for joining me for this breathing session today. So in yoga, we talk about breathing exercises as pranayama. So prana is often translated as life force or energy. So we're working with the breath as a life force, as our energy to nurture our whole body. And today I wanted to teach you straw breathing. It's a technique I came across in Donna Farah's breathing book, which is a wonderful resource, and I still refer to it now. And we'll need a prop, so we will need a straw. I've got my paper straw here. You may be able to use something else. You can roll up a small piece of paper. You could also use your hand. So if you almost make a fist, you can almost just about see through it, and they could work with that. Another option will be to feel like you're blowing out a candle. That's a very similar technique as well. So to begin with, we need to make sure we're sitting comfortably. I'm sitting on a bolster today with some height. You might want to sit on a chair. That might feel better for you. If you are sitting in a chair, just ensuring you're not leaning back into the back of the chair. You're sitting upright and your feet are flat on the floor. So you can feel that groundedness of the contact of the floor through the feet. And the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to count our breath in and out for a minute. So an inhalation and exhalation, so a breath in and out will count as one. So very simply, noticing the breath and counting the breath. You may want to close your eyes. You may just want to lower your gaze a little and just really start to think inwards or look inwards and notice the breath. So I've got my timer on my watch, so I'm just going to start that. And making sure you've got length in the spine, all the way to our crown of the head. Allow the shoulders to soften, allow the shoulders to drop. And we're going to start counting our breath now. So with the focus on the breath, following the breath in and out through the nose. Maybe you can notice where it's reaching, where it's flowing to. And that's a minute up. If you've got your eyes closed, just gently opening the eyes. I'll just stop my timer. So just notice how that feels, just a minute of conscious breathing. We spend all day unconsciously breathing, just breathing without thinking about it. Sometimes it can feel quite nurturing to really bring the concentration to the breath and just notice the breath, just a moment of peace. So if you're finding your breath is quite high up into your chest, you may want to stop or pause this video and just take a moment to encourage that breath a little further into the lungs. And you can bring your hands onto your belly and feel that you're directing the breath to the belly and just taking a moment to bring the hands to the front of the rib cage, the side and the back as you breathe as well, to encourage the breath and the lungs to expand in all directions. So the straw breathing technique elongates or lengthens the exhalation, and this in turn supports the central nervous system. So what we're trying to do here is to bring a sense of calm to the body and the mind. It's a very quick and easy way of calming our bodies and our minds. And this is a technique I teach in all my classes, whether that's children in schools, here in the studio, all my teenage classes, and actually I have taught it to many adults as well. It's a useful technique to have in your toolbox. So it's really helpful if you know you're a worrier, if you get anxious or nervous about things. It's a useful one if you have a teen or you are a teenager and you know you've got exams or a competition or a game coming up of some sort. And as an adult, it's a really useful technique to have if you know you're presenting, for example, or you've got to speak. Again, it's a useful tool to have. And it very simply nurtures the nervous system, so it calms the body down quite quickly. One thing I would say before we just start it and practice it is if at any point, if you feel any restriction in the chest or you feel dizzy or uncomfortable, please do stop, take a moment, and then maybe you can revisit it at a later time. So to begin with, we need to find our prop, our straw, or whatever you're using today. And it's very simple. We're going to breathe in through the nose and breathe out through the mouth. And so you may straight away notice that the breath out feels a little bit longer. You may even actually notice you can feel that almost deflating of the lungs as you breathe out. So just take a few moments to practice that a few more times. You may want to pause this video, take a few moments to practice it for a bit longer. Otherwise, we're going to count our breath for a minute using this technique. So have that mental note of how many breaths you did without using the straw. And I'll start my timer again now. So that minute's going to start in just a moment. And what we want to do is breathe in through the nose and out through your straw or prop that you're using. So that minute is starting now. And that's a minute up just now. So just take a moment, notice the difference between the two times, or the two numbers I should say. So usually we tend to breathe or have less breaths using the straw. So slowing the breath down is nurturing the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the side that helps us calm down, feel the rest and digest. Don't worry if it wasn't less, if it was more, it takes a little bit of practice and getting used to. But this is a useful technique for those that are anxious or nervous or worried, because what tends to happen is the breath is a little bit higher up in the chest. So as we're even upset, actually, you might sort of recognize that feeling if you've ever cried before or got really upset. It's almost like you're gasping for breath, and it comes high up in the chest, and we're also not exhaling before we have fully so we're inhaling before we have fully exhaled. So you may recognize that feeling as well. So it's encouraging the breath into the whole of the lungs, but also encouraging that full exhalation before we have inhaled. It's also a very useful technique if you suffer from asthma. It helps to strengthen the lungs, or any respiratory ailments, or maybe you've had flu or a cold and you're just needing to strengthen the lungs a little after an illness. So it's one to practice. It doesn't always come easily to begin with, so take your time with it. And as I said, if you feel dizzy or restricted in any way, please do stop and come back to it another time. But as I said, it's a very helpful breathing technique to have in your toolbox. And if you have any questions at all, please do drop me a comment down below and let me know, and I will answer them as soon as I can. Any questions as well. So thank you so much for joining me and learning how to breathe with a straw. I really hope you find this technique useful, nurturing, and helpful.